3, 2. Hey, Marvel Maniacs, welcome to another exciting episode of Guardians of the MCU. This is episode number 209. We're recording this on December 13th, 2021. Just a reminder, Guardians of the MCU is part of the Random Chatter Network, chatter.com for information on all of our shows, membership through Patreon, access to the Escape Hatch Discord channel, and show merchandise from TeePublic. I'm Tim. Joining me tonight, Sheba.
Hello.
As usual. Hello, Sheba. How are you?
I'm good. Can't complain.
Very
Count
good.
down the
Good
days. Count down the days for Spider-Man and for vacation. So, two things to look forward to.
I think we all are.
Yeah.
That kind of seems to be like that. Those are the days that all of us are counting down, I think.
Yep.
Also joining me tonight, special guest host.
Hello.
Erik. Hello, Erik.
Yes.
Oh, you're not.
He didn't say
you're not irregular now.
Thank you. It's
You're
between
special.
me and my proctologist,
Well,
Tim. That's not appropriate.
Yeah,
for
you've moved up.
Yeah. Yeah, right?
Wow.
TMI.
I too am looking forward to those
Wow.
2 dates, both so I get to see Spider-Man and because when your vacation begins is about the time mine ends. So, yeah, that's okay.
Oh.
It has been a good vacation so far.
That's true.
But you get to spend time.
I do, and it's been fun. And then
get to spend
because
time
I'm
with
here, I
Tim.
get to be on the show too,
Yeah.
which I'm
Yeah.
pretty excited about. So, though I will say, Tim,
Yeah.
as you said, Sheba, told me that I'd be doing
Sure.
the character profile, and I'm great. Which character am I doing? Well, we'll have to figure that out. So, what? 2 hours before we recorded? 2 hours before we recorded. We found
That's
the character
oftentimes
that
how it goes.
I'm doing, and it's not one
Yep.
I'm super familiar with. And then, as we decided, we then went out to a restaurant. So, I had 17 and a half minutes to whip this together.
Less time to work.
Please don't hate me.
It's all right.
I did a job.
I'm sure you did a fine job.
You know, the good thing is, the good thing is, you didn't have to follow up at Lizzie because Lizzie's were like, next level, and you have to like meet that. So at least you don't have
That
to
is
follow up a
true.
Lizzie profile.
Yeah,
Because that's
Lizzie
extra
profiles
pressure.
are a thing. Like she
Yeah.
gets in the character. There's
Oh.
She's got
there's
music and like
music. There's
I
sound
mean, I can do a
effects.
deep dive on
It's-
some
oh, yeah.
Marvel characters,
yeah.
but it's mainly
So-
like X-Men and then people you've already covered. So, I mean, at this point, we've got like the Doorman from Great Lakes Avengers, and we've got a couple people at Molecule Man. Maybe I don't think you've covered yet. We're running down the list pretty quickly.
First
Oh,
of all,
yeah, he's
Molecule
crazy
Man is
powerful,
actually
but
a
nobody
pretty
knows who he
big
is.
deal back
Unless
in Secret Wars.
you're old. That too.
And also kind of crazy. And folks, yes,
they were a
the
thing.
Great Lakes Avengers actually were a thing.
And Doorman was one of
Google
those.
this.
I think he turned
Past
into a
tense.
we don't know.
like basically portals and stuff. Yeah.
You said
Right.
Doorman, and I just assumed he
Like,
would open
Jarvis,
doors
but
for all of the
demoted.
Avengers.
Yeah.
Yeah, he wore a nice suit. Yeah, yeah,
He's like, a good day, sir.
Yeah.
yeah.
Welcome home.
He would call you a cab if he needed to. So, but
Right.
again, past tense. This is for Uber. So now we just kind of don't need the guy.
Ooh,
Now there's
yeah.
Uberman.
Quite possibly.
Yep.
You can call an Uber anywhere at any point and any time.
Yes.
He will
yes.
be there.
So I do want to mention, probably because we will be mentioning some of the folks in the chat room. Hello, chat room. We are live streaming this episode on YouTube. This is not going to be a regularity, at least in the short term, for Guardians of the MCU. We're doing this because of when you're working with Erik has
If only
a set
they were
of
useful ones.
superpowers.
He has a
And-
particular set of skills.
Yes, and Erik's superpower is that he can immediately broadcast things, I think, from his brain directly to YouTube. So that's the amazing skill that he brings. So yeah, Guardians doesn't regularly do this, but we were really excited to be able to do this this week for these shows. And you can also catch other Random Chatter shows that Erik happens to be on that also both live stream to YouTube, and they are archived there as well. So folks who are listening to this episode in the traditional way, podcasting, which now suddenly seems
everybody's
ancient.
doing it.
I'm sorry for relegating you all to old technology. I don't know. You can actually go to randomchatter.com/YouTube. And we don't have a feed of our own within the Random Chatter collection because we're only doing these couple. But if you look under the listing of Random Chatter shows, you will find 2 episodes of Guardians of the MCU in there. So you can actually see us.
You got to get the vernacular corrected.
Playlist. Yeah, I'm sorry. I have to move from podcasting speak.
We also need to start setting
lingo
up polls
to
and doing
streamer
shorts
lingo. Yeah.
I mean, I'm better with the Instagram stuff of that. I've done some YouTube stuff, but I haven't gotten around to the live. I know there's a link because I was helping out another teacher at school once.
You're doing YouTube
so I know
live
that
right
there's
now.
things you can do. It won't look as nice as yours if I tried to do it.
Literally yesterday before doing our other shows, I threw this together on my laptop. Like this is, my microphone is like. This is all
because I'm like I could
today.
probably I could probably like work out how to like do a live stream while we're recording.
Yeah,
you
just got to try it out.
I just haven't tried. So if we want to, and I would like to try, maybe we could mess around with it and see. Now that my internet is better,
bandwidth there
is more of a possibility for me to
now that your internet is better, Sheba, the entire world has opened up to you.
it's
Frank, by the way, in the chat room, has suggested to Erik that your superhero name could be Captain YouTube.
Captain YouTube, Uberman. We're getting all the.
That's already taken. I'm not sure. So as such, and Erik, you kind of alluded to, I don't know, being thrown under a bus or some silly thing. This episode is largely going to be yours. So we're doing the character profile of Kingpin. We've seen Kingpin. We've seen Kingpin in comics, in movies, in Netflix series. Maybe we saw his hand in part of his sleeve in a Disney Plus series. I don't know.
Yeah, we're going to find out soon. There's not much left.
2 days to find out.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But with that, Erik, we turn the episode over to you, minus our random questions, trolling, and satire that we will interject throughout your
silly man
spiel.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Well,
so
and first I do want to say,
Erik.
if you do cover Deadpool at some point, when he does join the MCU, you have to bring me back. Just saying. So, the reason we're covering Kingpin is because he may be appearing in the Hawkeye series. He may have already appeared in the Hawkeye series, kind of, as you said, his hand at least. Some people are hand models. That's how they get started, So we're going to break down the Kingpin. So the Kingpin originally appeared in 1967 in Amazing Spider-Man number 50. That was his first appearance. He was created by Stan Lee and John Romita Sr., one of the classic Marvel artists. Kingpin, the word, typically is used to refer to a mafia boss or a crime boss. It also is used in the automotive industry. If you've seen like tractor trailers, semi-trucks, that pin that's in the trailer that goes into what they call the fifth wheel on the back of the tractor, that is known as the Kingpin. So...
I did know that.
I thought if there's one thing I can do, I'm going to throw in a tiny little thing that even Marvel experts aren't going to know. I learned that at my current job, actually, because I heard somebody say something about a Kingpin. Wow. I'm like, huh? Yeah, on the trailer, the front of the trailer. Somebody drew on our trailers, and of all the characters to pick, And the guy who's like, I don't know, 60 just looks at me like, what are you talking about? You know, we have a drug policy here, right?
Yeah.
Like, have you lost your mind?
Yeah. So, so that's what a Kingpin means. But in this context, of course, it's the crime lord. And Kingpin is best known for that. He was born in New York City, abused as a kid, had a really rough childhood. And as he was growing up, he worked his way into a criminal organization and eventually took over it and then became known as the Kingpin. His real name is Wilson Fisk. I think it's Wilson Grant Fisk, if I'm correct. What else? He doesn't really have superpowers, but a lot of people are kind of surprised to find that he's a really good fighter. He's not obese. Think of him more as like a sumo wrestler. Like there's a lot of muscle under that fat. Okay. He is a master at armed and unarmed combat. He is a master tactician and strategist. He is a master businessman and a master of the criminal underworld. So he is very smart, very good at manipulating people, a master of chess, if you will, in the grand scheme of things, moving pieces around the board as he needs to make sure that they are positioned where he wants them to be positioned. And he does have peak strength and I guess constitution. So not superhuman strength, not quite Steve Rogers where it's been supplemented with something, but he is considered to be as strong as a human can naturally get. Okay. His known nemeses are, of course, Spider-Man. That's kind of where he started out. But I would say his primary nemesis is probably Daredevil. He also is a nemesis of Punisher, Echo, Hawkeye. I would say those are probably the heroes he's best known for having interactions with.
And of course, in our profile of Echo, we talked about that association between her and Kingpin, which Erik will kind of talk about again in this. But they do have that connection, which is also what, of course, has us thinking
right.
that connection
in case
exists
I forget to
in
bring
the
it
Hawkeye
up,
series as well, from what we saw.
It occurs later in Fisk's comics biography. He is actually, I believe, is the adopted father of Echo. He led her to believe that Daredevil killed her biological father.
Yes.
She later finds out that it was actually Fisk who arranged for her father to be killed, and then she kind of turns on him. But yeah, that connection is one of a few reasons why we believe that he may show up in Hawkeye and why we're talking about him here on this episode. That it seems to be a timely sort of situation here, especially he could show up in this next episode. We'll see. We got our fingers crossed. And there's also been talk of bringing some of the Netflix characters into the MCU. I know Kevin Feige recently was talking about Charlie Cox as Daredevil. And if that's going to happen, why wouldn't we also maybe get Vincent D'onofrio as the Kingpin? Oh my gosh, a brilliant
Especially
job.
since he did such a great job as Kingpin.
Mm-hmm.
Like, if you replace him, it's like, okay, I guess I'm sure the other person would be good too. But like in my mind now,
it would be distracting to the viewer to bring someone else in because no matter how good they are,
and
they would constantly be getting compared to Vincent D'onofrio.
Yeah,
because it was so recent.
Yeah, especially with bringing in Charlie Cox.
So how are you going to bring in one and not bring in the other? Like there would be so much meta discussion instead of discussion about the content. Exactly. I don't think Marvel wants to do that.
Exactly.
Yeah. So speaking of D'onofrio, Kingpin has appeared on screen before. So he first appeared in The Trial of the Incredible Hulk back in 1989, which I did not see, played by John Rhys Davies, who I believe...
Yeah, I have zero familiarity
Gimli
with
the
this.
Dwarf from Lord of the Rings. He was in some of the Indiana Jones movies. Was it Sliders?
Also in He was
I will
also
be
in Princess
honest,
Diaries
I am
2.
not familiar with that aspect
Anybody?
of his work.
He is the
Chris
uncle
Pine is
of
in
Chris
Princess.
Pine's character.
Okay.
Just deep diving into the. Yes, he is. I'm just revealing my love of Princess Diaries, and I'm not even sorry about it.
Just to throw out there for Trial of the Incredible Hulk. So this was a spin-off or continuation, if you will, of the TV series. So it did have Bill Bixby and Lou Ferrigno in it. From IMDb, the description here is when Banner is held as a witness to a violent crime linked to the Kingpin, the fugitive is helped by lawyer Matt Murdock, who is also the superhero Daredevil. So Daredevil was also in this.
Oh,
I don't know.
I feel like we should watch this now.
Stuff from back then was
kind of sad.
Have you seen
I mean, I'm not
David
expecting it to
Hasselhoff
be
as
great,
Nick Fury?
But I feel like
I haven't either.
Yeah, we don't need to see that.
I mean, I've seen David has other things.
He
so
was
I
in
can
a Nick Fury movie.
What that would look like. I've
You
seen
can
his
get this
music
on-
videos.
Can you? You can get this on Amazon Prime for $2.99.
The Nick Fury movie or the
just putting it
Trial
out
of the Incredible
there.
Hulk? I would pay $2.99 to see how bad David Hasselhoff is. Okay. All right. So the Trial of the Incredible Hulk, 1989.
Yeah.
Kingpin was also in Daredevil in 2003 with Ben Affleck. He was played by Michael Clark Duncan. A lot of people liked. Oh, he's a great actor.
Another great actor.
I don't know. Yeah. How much I cared for this version of Kingpin, but I think that was probably more the writing of the whole movie.
Yeah. I just assume a lot of those things are movie or like written or direction. Because if you don't have because most of those actors are actors. Like I've seen them in other things and they do great work, but then you watch them in something where the writing or directing is low, and you're like, oh.
I mean, Ben Affleck is a good actor. Colin Farrell's a good actor. Michael Clark Duncan. I mean, look at the Green Mile, for example.
Exactly.
So then when you come across something like the Daredevil movie, it's like, who directed that?
Exactly.
But he was in that. And then, of course, we had Vincent D'onofrio. Oh, real quick, Michael Clark Duncan also voiced him in the 2003 Spider-Man, the new animated series. Yeah. Vincent D'onofrio played him in the Netflix series, Daredevil, all 3 seasons. And then Into the Spider-Verse. In 2018, he was played by Liev Schreiber, who, another Marvel connection, played Sabretooth in X-Men Origins. Yep. So, those are the on-screen appearances of Kingpin so far, and one of the reasons why we're so stoked about this is because Vincent D'onofrio, like you said, Sheba, he nailed it. He was so good. I would watch a Kingpin series based on that version of that character.
Honestly,
in fact, I was more excited to see him on screen typically than I was Charlie Cox, and I loved Charlie Cox as Daredevil. Still do.
Agree. Yeah.
Yeah, they really had what I appreciated about the Kingpin character in the Daredevil series is that they gave Kingpin his own story arc. Mm-hmm. He wasn't just this villain that showed up that you're just like, oh, well, he's the villain. Okay. No, he had this full-on freaking story arc.
And it was a good story arc.
Full into everything that they needed to for the character. And it was good. And I mean, he's in prison. He has a love life. He has this, legitimate business. He has a shady business. He has this gorgeous apartment. Like all this stuff that they really went into depth with. And I really appreciated it. It made him more than just
started him out on that
superficial
series from a point of vulnerability. Like he was confident about his business decisions, but not always confident about his ability to figure out who to trust and who not to trust. And he was not all of that confident in his ability with women, which kind of became a recurring thing. Like he started to grow that and become more confident in a lot of ways. So there was an emotional vulnerability there that we never really saw in the comic books. And I think that this was one of the things that made him really relatable in the Netflix series, and why his journey was so good. And then we saw flashbacks of like,
and you could sympathize with him.
You could sympathize with him.
Exactly.
In the flashback episode, we went back to his childhood and stuff. And I think that did so much for us caring about the character, even as a bad guy, and getting to see that growth and getting to see how much he loved Vanessa. And I think that's really where they did a phenomenal job with the character. And I think it's one of the reasons why everybody's so anxious to see him come back. Between that and then just the fact that D'Onofrio did so well with that portrayal, because there was a broad spectrum, a large scope that he had to do. And he nailed every aspect of the character, whether it was vulnerable or the emotional rage and instability that he had in certain moments. It was nearly flawless, nearly perfect.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah. And I've always appreciated when you have, I mean, like they say, your hero is only as good as the villain. And they did such a good job with Kingpin that it really brought out the best in that show, because you got to see the best of Daredevil while he was up against Kingpin.
Yeah.
And most villains, I love villains that aren't just like, oh yeah, they're just pure evil, because most people are not just pure evil. There are reasons why they go into become who they are, whether it's in their past or something in their present. There's always some reason that they get to where they are now.
Right.
So it's always nice to see that reflected in the quote unquote villains that we see. Even if it's just a comic book movie, it's nice to kind of have that relatability, because nobody is pure evil.
Right.
There is always a reason behind people. And I really liked being able to see that for Kingpin.
Yeah. 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 They really brought a lot of humanity to the character. He wasn't just this, bad guy that you wanted to hate.
Yeah.
You could actually see.
You could see why he became who he became.
Exactly.
Yeah. And in a lot of ways, he just wanted to live his life. I mean, there was stuff that he did that he shouldn't have been doing.
Right.
But in a lot of ways, I mean, he wasn't. Yeah, he kind of just wanted to live his life. But then things kept happening to him. And, he was the kind of personality that when he pushed back hard.
Exactly.
And that's what really got him into trouble.
Yep.
All right, I'm going to go through the comic biography a little bit more here. We already kind of touched on some of the Netflix biography and kind of describing what we liked about the character, because his biography was in part what we liked so much, how good the writing was about his journey. And it's one of the things that I think we hope to see continue. But I'm going to hit the comic biography, and then we'll come back to what it could mean bringing him into the MCU. So I already mentioned he grew up in New York City, bullied as a kid, became the Kingpin. Before long, he managed to discover Daredevil's secret identity as Matt Murdock. And so that kind of played on and off over the years. He lost it later, I think through magic. I think it was revealed who Matt Murdock was, and then it was one of those things where it kind of blanket got wiped out at the end of one of these like big crossover events later on. The Black Cat was a kind of a Catwoman analog in the Spider-Man comics, and Spider-Man dated Black Cat for a while. Kingpin was the one that actually gave Black Cat her powers, apparently. I didn't know this. In hopes that then, in being around Peter Parker, she would cause there to be an accident or something, and maybe that would eliminate Peter Parker, but instead the two of them broke up. He apparently had some other little 2-bit villains that he ended up giving powers to over the years as well. He's lost his criminal organization a few times too. And has fled to different places, Japan, Eastern Europe, etc., to kind of get back on his feet. And then he's come back and taken over again.
Now, in the chat, Frank asked a good question. Does Kingpin just operate in New York? I mean, I know he's primarily been based in New York. Is there anything, Erik, that you know of that he's done stuff beyond?
I'm not really aware of anything. I know that he had a run-in with the X-Men, and I think it was when he was in Japan. I could be wrong in that, though. I never actually read that storyline. He really has he's tied to New York City in the same way that, I know this is the wrong company, but in the same way that Joker is typically tied to Gotham. It's not that he can't leave New York City. Right. It's just we rarely see him do that because he kind of falls under the...
Well, again, it's just like Spider-Man, Daredevil, Punisher. They tend to be New York City based. They may venture someplace else, but they are very grounded there.
You see Spider-Man venture off a lot just because he's Marvel's poster boy. And so there's a lot of crossover stuff. But really, this is part of the Marvel Knights arena where you've got all this street level characters. And those typically stay put. You know, he's not going off on galactic adventures somewhere. So, yeah, New York City, literally, maybe not, but effectively, he's always there. And that's kind of his thing. In fact, he becomes the mayor of New York City.
Yes.
It's
And,
good to be king.
It is. The kingpin for a reason. And, you know, he kind of tries to set himself up as a legitimate businessman and kind of as a front for his criminal activities. But yeah, he became mayor at one point. So very, very much tied to New York City. Doesn't have superpowers again. So a lot of the heroes he interacts with typically, this is not an Avengers level event. Okay. We're talking again, Hawkeye, Daredevil, Punisher, things like that. Let's see what else. He actually did have superpowers though, during the Spider Island event. Somehow he managed to end up with super strength and the ability to climb walls. Because, you know, Spider Island. But of course that was taken away. He was killed once too. There was a long run of Avengers and New Avengers written by Jonathan Hickman. That culminated into the entire multiverse being destroyed and then recreated as Battleworld in the new version of Secret Wars. And so you had a section that was Marvel Zombies and a section that was Age of Apocalypse and a section that was all like the British Arthurian stuff, Captain Britain and all them, and all of these different little segments, baronies and such. And as the final two multiverses were colliding, Kingpin basically threw a party and invited all the villains and stuff and said, hey, let's go up to the rooftop and we're going to watch our heroes fail gloriously for the last time. And just before they got to see that happen, Punisher shows up and says, you know how they say when you die, you can't take it with you, right? Well, I got a lot of bullets here that I can't take with me. Mowed them all down. So that was the end of Kingpin. And then the entire multiverse. So, of course, that got undone because, you know, Marvel.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah.
That's how it happens.
Yeah. So, I mean, those are the major points of the biography. There are a lot of other little things thrown in, some back and forth with Daredevil, some back and forth with Spider-Man. But, you know, without getting into all of the minutia of all of the different storylines over the decades, those are probably the big points. And bringing him into the MCU, why don't we talk a little bit about what that might mean, what the ramifications are? I know in my opinion, I think that if we are going to kind of separate the Marvel universe into the cosmic stuff, the global stuff, and the localized stuff, I think having him as a localized villain is brilliant. I think that he is someone who is substantial, not because he can punch really hard, but because his brain, like he's always so far ahead of everybody else.
Yeah.
What do you guys think on that? Is this something that you think is going to work in the MCU? Is this something you want to see?
I mean, I'm very excited to see what's called to see Kingpin in the MCU. To be honest, I just want to see Vincent D'onofrio and continuing his whatever arc was left off in Daredevil. I'd like to kind of continue to see whatever he does in the MCU. It's there's so much to that character that can be included in there. And I agree. If we are looking for something that is more local based, it would be nice to have him in there, because right now a lot of the threats are starting to become, galactic or out in space, and everything is bigger than, look, we're fighting a villain here, and they're like, yeah, but the entire world is being destroyed, kind of thing. So with Eternals and all the other, not to give anything away, if the Eternals, if you haven't seen it, but there's just having the Eternals in the universe, it's a lot bigger, and there's a lot more threats that can be included in that. So it would be nice to see something a little bit, local, something that isn't as end of the universe.
Because even though you have the end of the universe, you still also have people getting mugged and shot and things happening on the streets.
Exactly.
You still need heroes there too. That still matters.
Exactly. Yeah.
Yeah, and we've talked before about the supposition that the MCU is going to kind of fragment a bit, where we're going to see the cosmic characters doing their thing. We're going to see the quote Earth-based characters doing their thing, and the mystical characters doing their thing. And there's certainly going to be some interplay here and there. Even among the Earth-based characters, you then kind of have two different classes. You have the really superpowered ones, and then you have those that are either not superpowered or minorly superpowered.
Right.
And so the interesting thing is that we've kind of been thinking for a while, oh, hey, Moon Knight is going to be our first, street level Marvel Knight type of character. Interestingly enough, it's actually Hawkeye.
You're right. Yeah.
Kind of just came to that realization, because Hawkeye, we always lumped in with the Avengers.
Right.
But Hawkeye, he has some exceptional skills, but he is not superpowered. And we see just how grounded that character is, literally and figuratively, through the Disney Plus series that we're watching. And he's now basically become the introduction, certainly for Echo, for Kate Bishop, potentially for Kingpin, if what we're expecting is going to be true. And then we're going to see further doors open up for Daredevil. Again, we know Daredevil's coming. We don't know when or how. So yeah, we're going to see a lot of those characters come in too. So yeah, I appreciate that we're seeing it. And Kingpin is a formidable character in Marvel Comics, not because he's superpowered. I mean, yeah, he's exceptionally strong, but it's because of his brain. It's because of also kind of the corner of Marvel Comics that he lives in. The influence that he has, the criminal organizations that he leverages to do things. There's just a lot there, and I'm really excited.
So I was going to say, you mentioned that Hawkeye's the first street level hero. I want to clarify what I think you probably meant by that. He is now going to become the first entryway into that. I mean, technically, Black Widow does not have superpowers. We've had other, like, some villains and stuff the same way. You could argue Winter Soldier's the same way, but there's also, when you look at the non-super powered characters, you've got the spy, the espionage side of things, and then you've got the local neighborhood hero side of things. And so Hawkeye kind of danced the line between the two. And that's what I mean with Hawkeye. Right? Yeah. Hawkeye was doing the spy stuff with Black Widow, but he was then also, now we're kind of seeing him at more of a street level. And I think that we're going to see a little bit more of that crossover.
Do you think that they're going to keep more of this street level characters or more earthbound characters to like Disney Plus shows, or will they expand them out to movies as well? Or are they going to keep the galactic stuff, the space stuff more to movies and everything else to more?
That's a really good question.
Disney Plus.
Personally, I think we're going to see both. I mean, I think that the Disney Plus series are a great way, and we've talked about this before,
right,
on Guardians, that the Disney Plus series are a great way to tell long form stories.
right.
So it works exceptionally well for origin stories, for things where they're introducing a lot of characters. They want to give a lot of background to those characters, that kind of stuff. The films are good for the big action, the spectacles, that kind of stuff, in something that is a story that they can tell in 2.5 to 3 hours.
I'm going to go a different direction on that answer.
I mean, that's really where a lot of it
So
sits.
I agree with everything Tim just said. I also want to throw in production considerations, though. It's a lot easier to have Hawkeye and Kate Bishop having a discussion in a moderately furnished apartment than it is to have Doctor Strange, Iron Man, and the Guardians of the Galaxy having a casual discussion in Thanos' spaceship or something. So it's a lot easier on the budget for the street level characters to be able to do a television series, where if you were going to turn Endgame into an 8-episode TV series, the cost would be insane. And because you're not collecting movie tickets and making like $800 billion, you're not recouping that. So I think that while from a story point of view, Tim nailed it, and I agree with everything he said, I think also from a production point of view, that's another consideration where I think what I'll call the Marvel Knights stuff probably will be easier to produce on Disney Plus. And I imagine, I think Disney Plus is also easier as a testing ground. And so I think that they're more likely to do that sort of thing there. And then if they want to have a big crossover movie event or something like that with this, they could.
Right.
But then I think when you deal with the stuff on the street, it's easier to pair a lot of these characters up because they're in closer proximity. I mean, it's a city. Daredevil's going to run into Luke Cage. He's going to run into the Punisher. He's going to run into Moon Knight or whatever. So I think that you have enough characters that spreading that out over television series and such may be a good approach. I don't know.
Yeah, I think that there's a benefit to serialization with certain characters and certain, I mean, again, kind of a longer form storytelling thing. And of course we say that, long form storytelling, even though in the MCU is an even longer form storytelling because all these characters are obviously, they're all in the same universe. They're all connected. So I mean, a lot of it really comes down to what we mentioned last week or the week before on Guardians. The quote from Trin Tren, who is a producer with Marvel Studios, when she said, really, the main deciding factor of if we put something on Disney Plus or we make a movie out of it is how long is the story going to be? If it's going to be a 5 or 6 hour long story, we put on Disney Plus. If it's a film or if it's a 2.5 to 3 hour story, we're going to put it on film. And still, obviously, there are some nuances in that, but we've definitely seen, things like effects. I mean, they're still doing cinema level production on the Disney Plus things. We've seen it with the MCU stuff. We've seen it with the Mandalorian and such. I mean, they're still going all out with this. I mean, I don't know. We haven't really seen much about the production budgets for Disney Plus stuff because they simply don't release those figures like they do for film. But they're significant. They really are significant. We can tangibly feel that not only from what we're seeing, but also when we see the assembled episodes, the behind the scenes stuff of everything that they're doing. It's pretty incredible.
Agreed.
Yeah.
And I think we're also going to see a lot of crossover. I really don't think that we're going to see characters exclusively being on Disney Plus and never appearing in a film. I mean, even Kevin Feige has been very clear that, we're going to be intermingling these characters. We're definitely going to see a lot of that.
Yeah. All right. I mean, that's all I've got for the Kingpin. So I'm gonna toss the torch
Terrific.
back to you. But that's the Kingpin in a nutshell. I mean, the main thing I would say about him is if you're interested in learning more about him, there are of course plenty of comics you can check out. But if you haven't already watched it, watch the Daredevil series on Netflix. It's still available. They haven't pulled it. I don't think they plan to.
Yeah.
Yep.
And it was just phenomenal. It was phenomenal.
So good.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So good.
And it really does, especially from the perspective of Daredevil, like we said, or from the perspective of Kingpin, it really builds his story so much through that. It is just as much his story as it is Daredevil's in a lot of ways. And because the two are so linked in that series.
Yeah.
I'm muted?
No,
I can't be muted. Oh,
I
okay.
was
I was gonna say
I was speaking to your wife taking the dog out, though I said it as I was hitting the button instead of after I hit the button. So
okay.
Sorry.
Gotcha. All right.
Behind the scenes stuff.
The real goings on.
That's our behind the scenes stuff.
Yeah.
Yep.
I tell you what, I really hope that
Erik,
we do get to see D'onofrio. I can't wait.
Yeah.
I hope so. I know.
Yeah.
I'm trying not to get too excited in case we don't, because I was like, if I just sit there and think it's going to happen and it doesn't happen, it'll ruin the rest of the show.
So
I'm trying not to think about it too much.
Here's my perspective on it. If we don't see him in Hawkeye, the implications are that we will end up seeing the Netflix MCU characters in some way, because Charlie Cox has already been brought up. Kevin Feige has already kind of said it will definitely be him if and when it happens, and we can all assume the if is a given. The question is going to be when. If they bring Charlie Cox back, we know D'Onofrio's willing to, and you know that the fan expectation is going to be to bring Kingpin back. And you also know that Feige is smart enough to know that the fans like him for a reason, and that he is such a good opportunity for storytelling. So if he's not in Hawkeye, don't worry. We just have to wait longer. He will show up.
Fair enough. True.
Yeah.
Don't let it ruin Hawkeye.
Just like Mephisto, he's going to show up. Mephisto's going to show up too, at the same time.
Exactly.
Kingpin.
Listen,
and
I was on board with the
time.
Mephisto thing too, but Kingpin is established and loved, and good storytelling. Mephisto is a concept that you really have to bring people into, and you have to build that. This is already built.
I feel like it's. Yeah, I feel like we have Kingpin is more likely than Mephisto to happen anytime soon.
Yeah. All right, Erik, thank you again for joining us. Thank you for character profile. You did a fantastic job. I know you were concerned about trying
nervous.
to basically match what we have traditionally been doing, and you were spot on, 100%.
I would love to come back anytime you'll have me. I had a lot of fun.
All right, so next week, Erik will be doing a character profile. I'll mark that in the notes.
Man.
You can come join us. You can join us for our Spider-Man. When we're doing our review, we can make that live thing as well.
Yeah. We will we'll see what we can do with that. Yeah.
Throwing it out there to manifest.
Good to me.
Yeah. All right. Everyone, thanks for joining us for this episode, and go see Spider-Man, and we'll catch you next week.